Good morning. It's good to be with you all here this morning. It's been an exciting morning setting up new equipment, discovering that the email didn't work properly and had to be fixed, finding out that I'd damaged the mouse that I use for this service. So it's been an interesting morning. But I can tell you this, Sherry and I did a lot of walking this week on our vacation, a lot of hiking. And there were times, particularly on the last hike that we took, that we could have really used that run and not grow weary, walk and not be faint. Because towards the end of that walk, it reminded me of my old Boy Scout days where everything started to look the same, to feel the same, and just felt like that walk was go on forever. So this strength that Isaiah is talking about is something that we can all dearly use. Welcome to the last week of our superhero sermon series. We're going to close out the summer with the last of our superheroes. And do you want stamina? Do you want strength? Do you want wings? How can you get these things? Do you want to get these coveted things? And it seems most people do, because you see advertisements for them all the time. But you can have these things without 3 easy payment plans. You can really do it. These can be ours, my friends. And Hawkman and Isaiah are going to tell us how. We're going to be dealing with aliens today. Those from another world and those in another land. Qatar and Shayera are a husband and wife team. They are superheroic crime fighters. They come from the distant planet Thanagar, and they struggle against evil that spans the 2 worlds. The Israelites are exiled in Babylon, and they are struggling just to survive the oppression that they're living under. Now, Hawkman and Hawkgirl were introduced in 1940, and that name Hawkgirl is a souvenir of that a particular time. It seems odd to hear somebody's wife called that, but that was a different age. It sounds odd to us today, but still, when facing a world-spanning threat, the evil being called Thasaro, Hawkgirl asks her husband to pray with her. It would mean so much to her for him to pray with her, and here Hawkman backs away. Despite his strength and his power, he backs away from this challenge and says, Shayera, I can't. Prayer and religion and all that just don't hold the same meaning to me as they do to you. Me sitting next to you, reciting words I don't even believe. I just don't want my lack of faith to cheapen yours. It reminds me of the movie The Incredibles and the scene where Mr. Incredible doesn't want his wife to fight alongside him because he's afraid of losing her. He thought he'd lost her in a missile strike. And now he says to her, Elastigirl, by the way, there's that girl-woman thing again. And he says to her, I'm just not strong enough to lose you again. Isaiah spoke to the faithlessness of the Israelites, who were far from home. They were ground down. They were weary. They were believing bitterly that God had abandoned them, and they were feeling terribly weak. And Isaiah encourages them to come back to their faith. Hawkman and his spouse had great strength that was given to them by alien geology, the nth metal, which was in all their armor and allowed them to manipulate gravity and to fly. And for Hawkman to give Superman a superheroic beatdown, saying as he whacks him into near unconsciousness, it draws power from the magnetic core of the earth. Essentially, I just hit you with a planet. Isaiah assures us, speaking for God, that God will strengthen us if we place our faith and hope in God. No convenient payment plans required. No 1-800 number to call because operators are waiting for you now. We can live in faith and hope instead. It's a great deal for the present uncertainties of this age or of any age. Jesus promised nothing was impossible when we have faith and hope in God. Isaiah reminds those who they should have faith in and who they should place their hope in. The prophet asks them, have you not known? Have you not heard? Reminding them of who they should place their faith in. The God he describes is the one who creates the universe, stretches out the heavens as they understood the heavens back in the day, like a tent of meeting where all creatures can live together. And he's saying there that God is the God of hospitality, who invites us all into the tent of meeting, who's ready to be a gracious host for everyone who comes. And in this place of meeting, God can reveal great wisdom to us all. I see that when I take my morning walks and when I photograph nature in the large and the small. There are sudden moments of revelation on the way, moments of beauty. In that creation I'm photographing when I stop and take the time to look and take the time to listen. The one who names the stars, the galaxies, the black holes, the infinitude of space itself is greater in strength and power than all the universe combined. The leaders that make life miserable back in Isaiah's day, in Jesus' day, and in ours, who are oppressors kneeling on the throats of their own citizenry. Compared to God, they are mere grasshoppers. They are weeds in the field of the world. And when God blows God's breath upon them, they wither and they crumble away like stubble, soon to be forgotten. They are not mighty conquerors at all compared to the power and the majesty of our one true God. This is who we place our faith and our hope in, the incomparable one. So when you're feeling broken and exhausted, weak and faint, Isaiah tells us, come to the source of strength and be renewed. We've all had dreams of flying, haven't we? At some point in your life, you've dreamt of that, the liberation of it, lifting up and soaring through the air. The most vivid version of that I ever had was a strange dream in which, if you stepped up into the air in one particular way, with a certain movement of foot, you would feel the air almost solidify beneath you, and you could hover and float and skim over the landscape at great speed. It was an odd dream. The aliens, Qatar and Shayera, they flew with their gravity-defying alien ore that was in their armor, and they wore artificial wings that could be moved by their shoulders that allowed them to steer well and gave them the impression of flying on the wings of eagles. Our dreams of flying do not require, flying does not require alien geology. but faith and hope in God, and we can mount up with wings like eagles. But it's not literal flying. That's just a meager taste of what this is all about. This instead is rising above our earthly concerns, the worries about those bug-like, weed-like leaders that are trying to make life difficult, and instead drawing nearer to God. God rescued Israel from the powers of Egypt. God rescued humanity through Jesus despite the oppression of the Roman Empire. And God rescues us and lifts us up through the power of faith and gives us hope. God renews us, gives us wings, and carries us aloft on faith and hope combined. It's a dream that comes true. We regularly hear people say today that they are exhausted. They are giving up, tuning out, disconnecting. They can't continue to fly or to run or to walk or to crawl in the face of the news at home and abroad that's just so devastating and so all-pervasive. It's the weariness of discouraged parents, educators, postal workers, those pessimistic about whether their jobs will survive, those who are uncertain about their marriages and their friendships, those who are tired of trying to do good when so many don't seem to care. It's those who are barely resisting temptation, those who are exhausted by sorrow and disappointment and depression, and where do they turn? Where do they get the stamina? Where do we get the stamina to continue? We're all in this boat. Hawkman and Hawkgirl appeared in the comics infrequently, beginning in the 40s, moving to the 50s, the 60s, the 80s, and they keep getting renewed. Other superheroic characters fall by the wayside and are canceled once and for all. But they have superheroic stamina. Where do we get our stamina? None of us have nth metal. I think we know the answer by now. It comes in Isaiah's, "Have you not known? Have you not heard?" Faith and hope in God keeps us going when we want to quit. We are told by Jesus we need to lay down our heavy human burden, hand it over to Jesus, and pick up Jesus' much lighter load instead, to be free, to be buoyed up, to rise up on those wings. We turn to God who is everlasting, God who never becomes faint, God who never grows weary, the one who knows all, sees all, hears all, the true source of power. Those who have faith and hope have their strength renewed in God. They run and they grow not weary. They walk and they do not become faint. Faith keeps them going. It keeps us going. Faith gives us hope that we need. The last word on faith comes from Hawkman himself. The one who is troubled by his own faith, but recognizes the power of faith. His nemesis, the Pharaoh, he's a demonic character, and he revels in what appears to be his victory, and he says, "Nothing can destroy us. Not the weapons of man, not the gods, least of all a faithless little gnat who believes in nothing." And Hawkman replies, "I believe in courage, I believe in friendship, I believe in love. That is my faith. That is what gives me power, and that is your doom." Repeat that. Memorize it. Put it right there alongside, "Have you not known? Have you not heard?" Faith will sustain us. Faith gives us power. Faith gives us hope even in the worst of times, even in the best of times. James adds, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. Let endurance give us wings. In the end, Hawkman finds his faith. So do the Israelites, returning to Israel in God's own good time. And so do we, when we turn in faith to the all-powerful God, who is our hope. Many today are finding faith and hope in small things, small acts of creation, and little walks in nature. There's a resurgence of gardening going on throughout the nation. Victory gardens are rising up. People are raising crops for their families and for their neighborhoods, showing others how it can be done, creating videos on how to garden successfully. And nothing tastes sweeter than homegrown produce, does it not? Others in large numbers are flocking to nature, watching birds, yes, pun intended. And as they watch those creatures, they are reminded of the awesome diversity of God's creative mind. The beauty speaks softly to each and every one of them, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Have we not heard? Have we not known how to tap into great power, greater than the core of the earth, to rise up with wings like eagles, never to tire, to have hope through all, when we have faith in the one true God? Let us tap this never-ending power source today and every day, rising up, prevailing in the face of all challenges, and knowing joy when we do so. Let's pause for a moment of silent reflection. Amen.
Amen.